and Barack Obama. Instead of this money being funneled into the first primary and caucus states, like Iowa and New Hampshire, the campaign ran an educational campaign which made it painfully obvious that his campaign was not run to win. Conspiracy or not, it was a huge disappointment and provided more proof that the entire U.S. electoral system is a completely staged farce. An increasing number of states are now using electronic voting machines, which have many proven security flaws, which have led to even more questions about the credibility of the U.S. electoral system. With Bush leaving office, the elite decided to install Barack Obama as the next president in the carefully staged election of 2008. Obama ran on a campaign of change, but this was all a facade. Obama's campaign was backed by some of the biggest Wall Street banks and war contractors. Even Zbigniew Brzezinski served as an advisor for the Obama campaign. Around Obama, the elite created a massive personality cult, using sophisticated public relations and propaganda techniques that are used to sell him as a godlike savior to the millions of mind-controlled Americans that supported him. Once officially in office, Obama would appoint several pro-globalist cronies to high-level positions within the administration, including several attendees of the 2008 Bilderberg Group meeting. The Bilderberg Group meeting is a secret annual meeting of the European and North American elite that was originally formed in the 1950s. Current Obama cabinet members like Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner and Health and Human Services Secretary Kathleen Sebelius were confirmed to be in attendance at the 2008 meeting. Obama's cabinet also consists of other individuals who have links to other pro-globalist institutions, such as the Council on Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Commission. Clearly, this was not change. This was more of the same. In fact, Obama's policies have simply been a continuation of policies adopted during the Bush administration. Despite initially promising to remove U.S. troops from Iraq during his presidential campaign, the troops are still there, and Obama has actually authorized a buildup of additional troops in Afghanistan. He has also approved the continuation of attacks from unmanned aerial vehicles in the Afghanistan-Pakistan border region, which has resulted in the death of numerous civilians. Obama has even supported the government bailout of auto manufacturers, General Motors, and Chrysler, while small business owners and average Americans continue to struggle on a day-to-day basis. Unemployment has soared, and 10 cities reminiscent of the Great Depression have actually begun to pop up around the country. A phony stimulus package called the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act was passed by Congress and signed into law by Obama. The bill was a fraud and primarily expanded the size and scope of government and did nothing substantive to provide any sort of economic stimulus to the private sector economy. Obama has also embarked on an ambitious agenda of big government spending programs despite the nation's economic troubles. The U.S. national debt has soared to over $12 trillion, with the 2009 budget deficit soaring well over $1 trillion. Common sense would dictate that the government simply cannot continue on this course, but that has not stopped Obama from pursuing initiatives, including healthcare reform, among others. This sort of insanity is a clear indication that Obama's goal isn't to save the United States from turmoil, but instead to help destroy it. The 2008 economic crisis didn't just affect the U.S. It had a profound impact on the entire global economy. A manufactured economic crisis prompted calls from the international community for a new world order and a revampment of the global financial system. There have even been calls for a global currency by the Russians and the Chinese. As we have seen time and time again, the concept of problem-reaction-solution is used in which a problem is created and then a solution is proposed that furthers their agenda. There is little doubt that the end goal of the elite is to consolidate enough control so they have a privately run global central bank that controls the issuance of credit for the entire world. But the agenda goes much deeper than that. Over the past decade, there has been a push to sell people on the concept of the phony environmental problem known as climate change. In the 1970s, people were being scared into believing that man's activity on the planet would result in an ice age. Then when it became obvious that this wasn't going to happen, they tried to scare people into believing that man's emission of fossil fuels into the atmosphere was causing global warming. After people started to seriously question the new fraud of global warming, the climate propagandists began using the temperature-neutral term of climate change to get around people's legitimate questions surrounding the science. Of course, this in of itself is entirely insane, because the climate throughout history operates in cycles, and has always changed even before man was emitting fossil fuels into the atmosphere. Despite the fact that thousands of scientists disagree with the theory that man-made carbon emissions are contributing to climate change, that has not stopped the promotion of this fraud. The solution that they are proposing is to establish a cap-and-trade system on carbon emissions. In other words, a global carbon tax. Even if climate change were a real problem, implementing a carbon tax during a time of global financial turmoil would be a disaster for the global economy. On top of this, the concept of the cashless society is becoming more and more of a reality as each day passes. With the rise of the internet and electronic communications becoming more and more commonplace, an increasing number of people are voluntarily using debit and credit cards to pay for purchases. In fact, only a small percentage of money that circulates in the United States is now in paper form. The chief executive officer of Visa was quoted as saying that their goal was to have a cashless society by the year 2012, and if we continue moving in the direction that we are, it could very well be achieved. The problem with a cashless society is that all transactions, large and small, are recorded in databases that can easily be tracked and traced. It represents a complete erosion of financial privacy and the elimination of anonymous transactions. The ultimate goal is to get people to voluntarily give up using cash and to use debit and credit cards exclusively until all transactions are conducted without cash. The Japanese are even looking at the prospect of taxing the use of cash as part of an effort to eliminate cash completely. Even implantable RFID microchips and biometrics are being considered as forms of technology that could potentially be integrated into a future cashless society. If the elite are successful in establishing a cashless society in which implantable RFID microchips are the only means to purchase goods and services, the establishment could simply shut off your chip by making a change on a computer database, thus rendering you unable to buy goods and services. It might be hard to believe, but if you look around, we are not very far off from a world in which this could actually be happening. Overall, the monetary system in its current form is nothing more than a form of sorcery. In the 21st century, most money stores no real value. The vast majority of wealth is now stored as digital credits on computer hard drives and are transferred over computer networks. These credits are expanded and contracted by a banking system, which manipulates their value all to consolidate wealth in the hands of fewer and fewer people. The value of these credits, whether they be in US dollars, euros, or any other currency, is only based on the perception of the people using and holding them. From a historical standpoint, every money system that has not been backed by anything of tangible substance has either collapsed or has been replaced. The illusionary nature of the monetary system and its fraud can clearly be seen in the African nation of Zimbabwe, where inflation has risen to over 100,000% annually. The Zimbabwe dollar has devalued at such a rapid pace that there are even signs in public restrooms telling people not to flush Zimbabwe dollars down toilets because the notes can ruin the plumbing. And why are people flushing these paper notes down the toilet? Because in many cases, it is actually cheaper to use the Zimbabwe dollars as toilet paper than to go out and buy actual toilet paper with them. The Federal Reserve and other central banks around the world have flooded the banking system with an increasing amount of these worthless digital credits. Central banks like the Federal Reserve were first sold to the people as a means to provide a stable currency, which is now an obvious lie. The US dollar has lost approximately 99% of its value since its inception in 1913. It is painfully clear that the Fed has never had a policy of ensuring a stable currency and is setting up another massive financial bubble that will result in devastating consequences when it finally collapses. Although the establishment has made an example out of people like Bernie Madoff for running elaborate pyramid scams, the real pyramid scam that they don't talk about is the fraud of these central banking systems who create money out of nothing and manipulate its value in order to consolidate more wealth into the hands of fewer and fewer people.
What is the proper relationship, what should be the proper relationship between a chairman of the Fed and a president of the United States?
Well, first of all, the Federal Reserve is an independent agency, and that means basically that there is no other agency of government which can overrule actions that we take. So long as that is in place and there is no evidence that the administration or the Congress or anybody else is requesting that we do things other than what we think is the appropriate thing, then what the relationships are don't frankly matter.
My concern about the legislation is that if the GAO is auditing not only the operational aspects of our programs and the details of the programs, but is making judgments about our policy decisions, that would effectively be a takeover of monetary policy by the Congress, a repudiation of the independence of the Federal Reserve, which would be highly destructive to the stability of the financial system, the dollar, and our national economic situation.